After finding success in rebooting the Hitman franchise in 2016, IO Interactive and Warner Bros. Knew that a sequel was due. This new take on Hitman was brilliant and took all the things we loved about the original games whilst adding their own modernised features, whilst also making the games look up to today's standard. But making a sequel can be just as difficult. How do you meet the now high expectations of the fans? Do you rest on your laurels and risk being called a lazy sequel? Or do you try and innovate again and risk alienating your player base? It's a hard balance to find, but with a decent storyline ready to be explored and a whole bunch of new creative levels to design, IO Interactive were ready to give it their best shot. And in late 2018, we as Agent 47 were ready to jump back in. This time with all 6 levels ready to play from day one, and some new game modes alongside it. So the question on everyone's mind is, could the sequel live up to the original? And that's what I'm going to answer in today's video. So prepare to fly like a bird and grab some popcorn as I review Hitman 2 to see if it really is a good sequel. What a better place to start than the thing I saw as the weakness to the original. And right off the start here, I can say that Hitman 2 does make improvements in this aspect. I found the story in Hitman 1 to be quite lackluster. Not bad per se, just not very memorable. We left off on a bit of a cliffhanger, with Diana potentially working with Providence. And that's where we pick up, now working with the said company to find the Shadow Client who has evaded us so far. The name of the Shadow Client is revealed to us, and after a bit of back and forth and tension between the two characters, we find out they aren't so different after all. In fact, they both happen to be clones made by Providence, with the eventual goal of becoming these hitmen. It's during this where we discover the true power of Providence. This company has been working in the shadows this whole time, basically has global connections, and are an imposing force. It's this theme in particular that I think takes the story to the next level. It's not as face value as the first game, but instead allows you to think, how powerful really are Providence? And how as 47 can we take them out? It's here where the motivations for the rest of the trilogy are set out, and Providence can play the role of this looming threat, whilst our targets on each mission act as the immediate threat. Look no further than Star Wars and Emperor Palpatine. Always hiding in the shadows, with his true power always hinted at but never fully revealed. And the same can be said for Providence here. And it really helps build them, and the people behind them as evil. An example of the threatening side of Providence is shown to us shortly after, as we find out why 47 doesn't remember Lucas, as his memory was wiped. We continue to find more information about Providence and take out people linked to them, until we finally manage to capture the Constant, who is the leader of the company. He reveals the true power of Providence, and sets up the final installment in the trilogy. But oh wait, there's more, as the DLC adds more fuel to the fire, but the most important takeaway that I can say here is that the DLC ending implies that Lucas helps the Constant escape, and lo and behold, the events of Hitman 3 are ready to take place. As I said before, Hitman 2 is certainly a step up for me in terms of its story. It introduces many new themes that create more intrigue, while also giving us more of a reason to care about the story. A compelling villain was built up over the course of these missions, and the motivations for our main character were laid out. It's these building blocks which perfectly set up the third game, and make the second game a draw throughout. Undoubtedly, the biggest highlight of the original game was the level design and sandboxes that IO were able to create. From a sprawling fashion show in Paris, to the tight streets of Marrakesh, every mission was close to its real-life counterpart, whilst not sacrificing anything in the gameplay department. So my biggest question going into Hitman 2 was, could it keep up the same standards set in the original? And the short answer is, you're damn right it can. From a colourful, vibrant and thrilling racetrack set in Miami, to the dark, gloomy, but simply awe-inspiring Isle of Sgil. The theming once again here is second to none. The atmosphere the places give off is exactly what IO want you to feel. When in Miami, you would feel more of a positive vibe, and the bright colours, costumes, and crowd full of happy spectators convey this perfectly. Or what about Whittleton Creek? A charming suburb in Vermont, where everything seems to be normal, people just going about their daily tasks. But when you look a little deeper, you find it's hiding secrets that you wouldn't expect when first arriving at this beautiful street. And don't even get me started on the DLC level design. Perhaps two of my favourite ever Hitman levels in the same DLC. The first takes us to a bank in New York, which is excellent in its own right, but the second, named Haven Island, is absolutely stunning. Set on a tropical island, the peaceful atmosphere hits you right away. This is a level that really allows you to casually go at your own pace and take in the sights, as it's by far the most visually stunning level in the series. In terms of the maps and their gameplay, it's mostly good, but I'd be lying if I said it was all perfect. Maps like Miami and Isle of Scale are well sized and have enough routes to make the gameplay feel seamless. However, other maps don't quite hit the mark in the gameplay aspect, particularly in repeat playthroughs. I enjoyed the Colombia map initially, but on repeat playthroughs, I feel it's a little too large, and getting from target to target can feel slightly frustrating at times. Mostly here, it follows the same formula we saw in Hitman 1, and yes, that can make the game feel samey in some aspects, but I feel like the innovations we get in other areas, such as the improvement on the storyline, that end up allowing this game to have its own identity. I would have maybe liked to see them take more risks in the gameplay, to make it stand out more, but they would run the risk of reinventing the wheel when it doesn't really need changing. They did, however, change up the gameplay in the Whittleton Creek map, and for me, it's fantastic. It mixes up the gameplay towards the midpoint of the game, and acts as a less expansive but more story-focused mission. One more of these type of missions, with the expansiveness of the maps takes a back seat, would have been perfect for the pacing of the game, and for the gameplay to stay fresh. Overall though, the level design is still fantastic, and there isn't really much more IO can do to innovate here. The maps provided give us new visuals, creative encounters, and mostly fun and replayable missions, and that's all we can ask for from a Hitman game. That's right, you've read the title for this section, and you're probably wondering, what does he mean by the fun stuff? Well, I'm talking about everything, from the game modes providing replayability to the comedy elements that keep you coming back. Hitman 2 once again stands out in this aspect, as it adds that little bit extra to make the game even more charming. The new game modes, Ghost Mode and Sniper Assassin, are both a blast to play with friends, and are, in my opinion, the best way multiplayer could be implemented into this franchise, as adding it to the regular missions could make it a little more difficult to balance. But instead here, we have fun side modes that act as a fun bonus to the core experience. The comedy elements from the first game return. Somehow, a game revolving around being a trained assassin who is a master at the role can also mix in comedy to perfection, knowing exactly when to break up the serious nature of some missions. This can be found in abundance for the various story missions and opportunities, and they usually come with some sort of comedic undertone. Or, you can find it through simply listening to the world around you. So many times, you'll hear a hilarious line from the many NPCs in the world, and it does to some extent make the game feel more real, as it's not being too serious. And finally, perhaps my favourite part of the game is the disguise system. Agent 47 at face value doesn't have much character. He doesn't talk much, he doesn't have any emotion, and he wears the same suit everywhere. That is until you steal a disguise, and seeing him dress up as anything ranging from a waiter to a pink flamingo, and walk about as if nothing has changed, is comedy gold, and it sets Hitman apart from other stealth games I've played. In fact, out of the whole trilogy, Hitman 2 is probably the most jovial of the games. It still has that underlying story that has serious themes, but once you enter a level, the game just lets you have fun. And overall, it's these fun features that are the ones that add that replayability, and without them, I don't think the World of Assassination trilogy would be as fun to return to as it is. The question I posed in the intro of this review was, could Hitman 2 be a good sequel? And it's a tough one to answer, but I think overall it is a slight improvement. That's not a bad thing though, as Hitman 2016 was a fantastic game, and there wasn't much more that IO could improve on, but rather, it was about if they could perfect what they already had. In many ways, Hitman 2 does do this. It plays into the comedy aspect a bit more, and the story is far more intriguing, introducing many key themes that have me hooked throughout. The level design is once again good, not outstanding like another game in the trilogy, but I would say it does match up well to the original. Gameplay wise, you may have noticed I chose not to really cover it in this review. It has a couple of innovations here and there, but overall, not much really changed from the first game, and since I went over the gameplay in that review, I felt it was unnecessary to rehash many of the points I made in that video. It's for these reasons why I give Hitman 2 an 82 out of 100 score. When I said slight improvement, I really meant it. Spoiler alert, but I gave Hitman 1 an 81 out of 100. And I believe the additions of the new game modes, another quality selection of maps, and a good story slightly push Hitman 2 above the original. It's the game I've probably returned to the most in the trilogy due to its replayability, and overall, it's probably one of my favourite stealth games of all time. I can't just recommend Hitman 2 though. The entire trilogy is superb, and many of the points I made in this review stand for all three games. So eventually, I will review my favourite new game in the trilogy, and that is Hitman 3.